Has anyone here heard of Hi-Fi Rush? To say it's been eating up my time lately would be a bit of an understatement. You probably don't understand. This is one of those games where the more I think about it, the more I just love it. With the current state of the video game industry, one riddled with executives turning a blind eye to questionable work environments, a bouncing scope with realistic budgets, breaking marketing promises, willingly blowing cash on anything but improving their products, and forcing developers to take the rap for it, freaking Blizzard, man, I think it's actually a good idea to sometimes just take a step back and look at when something good actually comes out of a AAA studio. You know, to give yourself at least a little bit of hope. Hi-Fi Rush stood out to me as it gave me that hope, being one of the few games released in recent times that many game companies, including the publisher themselves, could benefit from taking a few notes. Let's first talk about the unique way it handled its marketing. You're hit with three things on January 25th. First, the reveal. Showcasing the vibes and the aesthetics, it's clear that this was going to be something cartoonish, lighthearted, and music-focused. Second, the deep dive trailer, showcasing the game's mechanics, the characters, and how everything really did sync up to the beat of the music. Third, the game. You ever marry someone you just met? Bethesda and Tango Frameworks went for the shadow drop approach, when we're told that we're going to be getting something at pretty much the same time we're actually able to get it. This approach comes with some risks. You'd have to hope it generates hype on release or spreads through word of mouth enough in order to make a decent buck on it. It's especially important here too, since it's a brand new IP being published by Bethesda, developed by Tango Gameworks, the duo you would expect a horror game from. It's pretty clear that the people working on this one knew what had to be done to give it the best chance it had, since this approach completely avoids the risk of overstepping its hype. They knew it was something niche, so they just kind of threw it up on a weekend and said, hey, it'd be pretty cool if you check this out sometime, just something we've been working on and off on, just $30 too, and hey, if you've already got Game Pass, it's practically free, you just can't go wrong with that, huh? And to be honest, yeah, you really can't go wrong with that. The game is a breakout hit according to Aaron Greenburn, the marketing VP. The accessibility of this game was no mistake. They wanted to get you wowed by the reveal trailers, and then before that wow attitude wears off, you probably already have your hands on the game, which would be super predatory if this game were all lies and junk. Turns out it was anything but that. It is amazing what Tango Gameworks was able to create here. I thoroughly love this game back to back. I love it so much actually that after completing the entire mural on my primary save file, I have told myself I'm going to give it one last playthrough from scratch on Rhythm Master difficulty, this time kinda just documenting my run. This is Chai, a rockstar wannabe who, despite being a rockstar wannabe, does not know how to play guitar.
I said that.
I have to respect this dude's charisma. He may have some moments that some would call cringe.
Rockstar.
Are you done?
Yes.
But I'm gonna be real, he's having more fun than anyone else in this journey is, so who am I to judge?
And welcome to Vandalay Campus.
That's Lucille, by the way.
Yes.
We get to see Chai go to Vandalay Technologies, looking for a cool robot arm in exchange for his limp one, presumably thinking that the arm will somehow make him an actual rockstar. I like how the game starts with some licensed music right off from the get-go, this one being Lonely Boy by the Black Keys. The song is copyrighted, but there is an option to turn off the licensed tracks in exchange for original ones as well, and proof the developers are accommodating for everybody. The unlicensed track is The Beacon by the Glass Pyramids, which, like every original track in the game, not only keeps the same energy as the licensed music, but keeps itself distinct. Some have even argued that they fit the situations better. I particularly think that both tracks do their job well here, but have a listen to Lonely Boy for a second, and then The Beacon for a moment. It's not one-to-one, but it is familiar in a good way. This upbeat music alongside the visuals blending anime and western cartoon aesthetics with cel-shaded graphics creates this optimistic vibe that screams, "Hey! In case you haven't noticed, we're here to vibe." I haven't even talked about what happens in this opening cutscene. We immediately get a feel for Chai's mischievous nature, get our first mention and sighting of all the bad guys, Kale, Rekka, Mimosa, Zanzo, and we also get to see our first ally, the cat. We also come to see how Chai's surgical procedure messes up. Just a few things happen in this opening scene, yet the way it presents these sequence of events does everything it needs to get you into the right headspace for the game. This is something you'd wake up on Saturday morning for. This is what you'd watch a TV show if you were a kid in the 2000s. This is Hi-Fi Rush, which is why I want to talk about it.
An error has occurred. Please proceed to the checkpoint.
Okay, checkpoint. Where's that? Don't worry. Probably no big deal.
Upon your first few seconds of gameplay, you might have come to already notice something. Even if you didn't, as you're walking around, taking a gander at the environment, or watching this cutscene, you might begin to at least feel it. I mean, I know I do. Alright, if you still haven't noticed, everything moves to the beat. Everything. Chai walks to the beat, he snaps to the beat, he attacks to the beat, he dodges to the beat, all of which done with an MP3 player in his heart and a magnetic waste management arm. Yeah, turns out the surgery he signed up for just gave him the ability to pick up trash. Faster. Anyway, that's just Chai alone moving to the beat. The UI has this cool pulsing effect that moves to the beat, and the enemies always attack on the beat. The gates in this cutscene.
Got it!
Also to the beat. Let's rewatch that cutscene where Chai's powers emerge one more time, but take away the music. Really listen to the clanking of the metal. It's not just clanking, it's escalating. Making this game music-based does not just make the environment feel so alive, but it also helps to make the gameplay one of the most legible things you'd give a person. One thing I've always had a bit of a problem personally with combat in games is that I very easily jump into button mashing territory. With these situations often being more reaction-based, while I can manage with time, my first few encounters wouldn't feel all that satisfying because there isn't anything to attach the flow of combat to for me. Granted, I don't play that many combat-focused games, so take my thoughts as paper-thin as you want. I think what I really mean is that, here in Hi-Fi Rush, it is extremely easy to understand and get a feel for its combat, with the difficulty coming from, can you vibe better? If I had to guess why it felt so easy to get used to, it's probably because I was able to attach the flow of combat to something. In this case, the rhythm. Think in time signatures for a moment. You know, these things.
Whoa. Go! 1, 2, 3, go!
That is what light attacks feel like in succession.
Ready!
And that is what heavy attacks feel like. Attaching the button combinations to something, in this case music and time signatures, allow me a chance to know how I want to proceed, whereas in other games I just think, this one. I admit, it's a skill issue for other games, but that doesn't change the fact that this consistent flow allows me the time to thoroughly think ahead. And as I said, enemies attack on the beat as well, which, alongside a little shiny indicator and sound cue, you are always capable of anticipating attacks when they're coming. This turns fights into less of a struggle and more of a dance with your fingers.
No, I was just... Well, here we go.
By the time I've landed the first 2 hits of my first combo, I already know what I'll be doing next and whom, whether or not I'll need to dodge an attack that's coming, what aerial combo I'll be using when I launch that guy 14 beats from now. Even with all of this helping you get a feel for the beat of the music and making the combat both simpler to understand yet more interesting to watch, you even have optional UI to visualize the beat more definitively for you. Again, the developers know what they're doing. They know that this is freaky and weird, but also what can be done to make it easy to digest. You get a little whenever you hit the beat, and if you want to keep a combo in rhythm, since Chai's attacks always land on the beat, you can use them when they land as a point of reference as well. The beat isn't just something you feel, it's something you see, something you hear, and something you do. As a result, even if you turn the music off and it's just the sound effects or even vice versa, I'm able to keep up because the rhythm is still there. And even better, you don't need to be on the beat. It merely helps you deal more damage, so even if you don't have a musical bone in your body, you can still succeed. Dashing is probably the only move that's noticeably more useful on beat, since that's when it can be combined up to 3 times with itself and a light or heavy attack, allowing the player to have 2 different ways of approaching an enemy. Combining it with a light attack is great for closing the distance and starting a ground combo, while comboing with a heavy attack will launch you and an enemy into the air for an aerial one. And if that wasn't useful enough, the dash is also great for getting around just a little quicker and making you get the distance you need out of your jumps. This will often be needed, as jumping in this game does not give you much horizontal distance for platforming. Yeah, apart from the lack of a lock-on feature, this is probably the weakest part of Chai's moveset. At least you've got a double jump to make it less frustrating. After your first little encounter, can I briefly make one more minor complaint? Why are you gonna stop me for this? I'm not offended that you felt the need to force first-timers to read this stuff, but I feel like it would have been nice to add, maybe, a button prompt that shows these text blurbs up. I didn't need to be told that energy drinks restore my health, I just saw it do that. Yeah, the tutorial does ask you to read a little bit, but for me, personally, I consider it bearable.
Hello, Big Boss of Production Record here, and what's this I hear about a defect running wild in Record Zone? Anyone sees this kid running around? Record wants you to smash him. No defect.
The fact that Rekka here is fully animated and not just a JPEG honestly just says even more about how much care was put into this game. I'm replaying the game on Rhythm Master, so I have no need to talk to this guy, but he's Smidge, an optional tutorial for players. He'll show up every now and then and try to share tips and get uncomfortably close, but bottom line, he's great for first timers. Though I wonder what the point of stopping me for certain tips even is now. By the way, gears are our currency. You get them when you break crates, robots, or just by exploring the world. After doing some platforming, saving a cat, love a small detail of the onomatopoeia by the way, and then being catcalled by the cat, we come across this blue shielding that we just can't access right now. Very cool. But we catch up with the cat, and though Chai is reluctant to befriend it, one pet later and he ends up synchronizing with it to learn about beat hits. These little visuals come at the end of a combo, acting as a finisher that deals more damage, which, now that we have access to said beat hits, I can showcase what moves we have at this point. We only have access to a few fairly simple combos, mainly because it is the first level. Best not to overwhelm the player, you know? The Hambucker is good to use if you want to do some quick damage on an enemy that will surely be stunned when you hit them. Whereas the Grand Slam is solid for a slower but hard-hitting white attack that could span across a few enemies at the same time. We also come to learn about using rests in our combos, waiting a beat to continue on the next. We only have access to one right now that helps to launch enemies off the ground and start an aerial, but more do exist. Like one more. Admittedly, I never really used this combo since faster methods often exist. The few times I've used it were often just to spice up the soundtrack, which you are actively making with these beat hits now. You also have the air countdown, which is basically just a humbucker but for the air, often slamming an enemy back to the air or just having them explode on impact. And if you want to just bring the guy back down, one hammer-on will do the job. This move is often more so used as a combo finisher, but you are always able to just start another ground combo from there. All in all, you got options. Simple options, but options. We'll learn some more combos as the game progresses, but from where we are now... Uh-oh.
I think I found a shortcut.
Yeah.
I just needed a transition. If you explore a little bit, you'll also come to find that there are actual collectibles to find, such as life gauge pieces to increase your health tanks to store your health for a rainy day, and electric reverb core pieces to maximize a certain gauge. After a brief 2D section where the cat tells us Vandalay Technologies is hiding something, we go through a neat little set piece and learn about special attacks, the type of attack that requires reverb gauge to activate. As tempting as it may be to hold on to that sword power in the gauge, it always resets after every battle, encouraging players like me to just use it and don't worry about holding on to it. There are many different types of special attacks, but the one we're handed right now is the power core, one useful for hitting a single target really hard, and it's really easy to recharge it too, as it only needs 2 reverb gauges. And yes, this gauge is what the reverb core pieces can increase. Since we're thrown into a combat segment to take this special attack for a test drive, let's take a moment to talk about the enemies we're introduced to so far, since there's a lot of variety among them throughout the game. These orange bots with swords, also known as SBR units, attack you by getting up close and personal. They don't do much on their own, but you may find yourself needing to dodge once or twice every now and then if you're fighting a group. Meanwhile, these GNR units, or gunner robots, are handling simple flashlights. They tend to keep their distance, so it's usually a good idea to go after these guys first while fighting a group. Be wary though, they sometimes won't shoot one laser, but 2. Meaning you'll have to dodge for 2 beats if you have any intention of avoiding them. We go through a little portion of the level showcasing how much distance the dash can give us, coming across a door that looks like it can be broken, but just can't yet. This little rhythm minigame also comes up where you hit a corresponding button at the right time. Not much to say about it, but it's short, sweet, and offers some time to vibe. The next lesson to learn is about tough enemies, coming with a stun gauge that, until it's broken, allows them to not be phased by your attacks. They'll still take damage, but they can still attack you while you're wailing on them. It's a simple but effective mechanic, giving you a requirement to dodge or use other defensive tools, even in one-on-one situations. After conquering that guy, we then get a chance to learn about mixing up light and heavy attacks for new combos, specifically the 2 I'm about to share. The tremolo is fairly quick and allows for not just dealing damage to the enemy in front of you, but any enemies directly behind them. Meanwhile, breakdown is slower and even leaves you open, but it is in exchange for covering a wide area, converging the enemies into one spot and hitting them with those cool looking explosions. Notice how the combos are the same in pattern, but only switch the button being pressed. I really like that. Keeps things simple. It's the first level. If you explore a little bit, you'll come across this little firewall that we just can't get by right now. But let's forget about that for now, because...
Introducing the head of production, Rekka!
Yeah, we've stumbled on the Rekka's trap, and considering the fact that Chai, brains included, agreed to a contract that allows him, a defect, to get recalled, that means die. We'll have to face the QA.
Defects get recalled!
I'm sure he's cool.
I like defense.
That's good.
I like how they taste.
Oh, that's bad.
Inspection level 1 million.
Let's rock, big boy.
I love it. Man, they know how to introduce a boss. First with Rekka and how commanding she comes off as, and using 1 billion by 9-inch tails to introduce the fight with Mr. QA just made the situation feel much more epic than it had any right being. Too Big to Fail by the Glass Pyramids is the unlicensed track here. I'll let you listen to it. As for fighting him, it's pretty simple. If you hit the quick time events, he'll expose his head as a weak point for bonus damage, and he choreographs his attacks pretty predictably, so dodging or jumping out of the way shouldn't be a huge problem if you're quick enough. He'll eventually start to implement missiles and shock attacks into his moves once you get a little far into the fight, but as long as you expect it, it's simply another thing to dodge. Once he enters serious mode, however, that's when he starts to get a bit quicker. He starts shooting lasers and moves around the battlefield much more, but he also leaves himself open for even longer than usual with his heavier attacks, allowing you more time to hit back. For the first boss fight overall though, I have to say, it knows what to do and it does it well. It challenges the player's knowledge on the basic mechanics of the game, from landing beat hits and prompts, telegraphed attacks showcasing themselves on the ground via red and green colors, rhythm dodging at its most effective, and, what I believe is also important, teaches the player just how bombastic the end result will be.
Got a killer track.
Pero todo tiene su fin.
I cannot wait to do this to Rekka. And you know the best part? This was all just the first level.